and you see the nakedness, the guilt of your life. It wasn't the fact that they were naked was the problem. It was until that point, Adam never looked at himself. He looked at Eve. His whole life was for Eve. Eve never looked at herself until her eyes were open and she saw, I'm naked. Trying to cover it up. You can try to blame others for it. Some of you under the sound of my voice, getting quiet in here. It's getting kind of hot too, isn't it? We could try to blame others. I mean, that was the very first reaction from man. He said, Adam, who told you were naked? Adam says, that woman you created for me, God, it's her fault. She's the one that did it. He looks at Eve and says, Eve, what have you done? He said, God, it was the serpent that you created. It's his fault. He looks at the serpent quit talking at this time. Some of you laughed and said, well, yeah, it was all woman's fault. At least she listened to a snake. She didn't listen to her. Man listened to the woman. At least if anybody had an opportunity to say, wow, it was something that never happened before, God. We try to blame others for our sins. Now listen to me today. I know some of you are in here today and you're going through some things because of what somebody did for you. I'm not telling you that that's okay. I'm not telling you today that you don't have an issue or there's not somebody did something to you. But I'm here today to tell you you don't have to hold and die in the midst of sin that's in your life, because you don't have to blame anybody else. It was the nature of man. And so you can try to blame others. Come on, you can try to deny your sin. This is a good one for Satan. He likes to get people to deny it. I mean, we changed the name of it. It sounds better, doesn't it? Instead of saying homosexual, we say alternate lifestyle. It sounds a little better, doesn't it? But sin is sin. We can say, well, I'm in an extramarital affair. Sounds a little bit better than adultery. We try to change it around and dress it up a little bit and push it back out and say something's not right. We call fornication, and so that sounds a little rough. We just call it premarital sex. Doesn't sound quite as bad. You see, today you can try to deny your sin. Genesis chapter 4, remember Cain? When he slew Abel. God comes up to Cain and says, Cain, where's your brother Abel? You know what Cain said? Am I my brother's keeper? He knew what he'd done. God said, hey, Cain, what is this? The blood that's crying out of the ground of your brother, what have you done? Can try to deny. Even Cain tried to deny it all the way through, because when God put the curse on him, whatever the curse was, I don't know, it was something that was noted, that he was known as an individual that God had cursed, and he said, oh, this is just way too hard on me, God. Why would you do this to me? It's not my fault. You sit in this building today and try to blame others. The point of it is, friend, God provides for the need in our lives. When it comes to sin, when it comes from failure with God, you can call it anything you want to. But when you know you're not where you need to be with God, God doesn't leave us to die in our sins. Why? Listen to me today. The reason why is because God has provided every opportunity of what's needed in our lives today. Really, He has. Notice what He's given you today. First of all, He's given you love. Think about it this morning. while you were yet a sinner, God loved us enough. Romans chapter, where's it found? Romans chapter 5, verse 8 says, God demonstrates His love towards us, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. God's provided love. In this building today and you don't feel loved, you're missing an opportunity with God because He loves us. He loves you. Oh, Pastor, you don't understand the circumstances that surrounded my life. Doesn't matter what it is. Matter of fact, God isn't even looking at the circumstance. He's looking through the glasses of love. He loves you. God's provided love. God's provided the gift we need. Romans chapter 5, verse 15 says, but the gift is not like the trespass. For if the many died by the trespass of one man, how much more did God's grace and the gift that came by the grace of one man, Jesus Christ, overflow to many? Here's the clincher of this thing today. Here it is. When we weren't even unlovable, God loved us. Even when we didn't even know what we needed, God's offering a gift. It was Jesus. He's provided for us. And listen to me today. He's got a plan. Here's His plan. Let me tell you His plan this morning. Let me tell you His plan this morning. Here's His plan. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 7. In Him we have redemption through His blood. The forgiveness of sin in accordance with the riches of God's grace. His love, His gift, His grace. And here's His plan. Whosoever will come to me, whoever wants to receive my forgiveness, whoever wants to be set free from the sin and the guilt of circumstances that are in your life. Those who this morning that are in this place and you don't understand there's this feeling of emptiness in your life, God has a plan to fill it. And here it is, friend. We must respond to God's gift. Oh, Pastor Brooke, you said it so well. I thought you were just going to preach my sermon. God's laid it out. He's just unfolded it before us. He sent His Son to die on a cross, to rise on the third day, to ascend to the innermost parts of hell and lead captivity captive. That's things that Satan says, I'm going to hold you with. Every sin that Satan was dangling on the keychain and saying, I've got him locked up. Satan stood there that day and looked at the enemy of your soul and said, give me the key, because you can't lock mankind up anymore. And all we have to do is respond to what God is saying in our lives. Your head's bowed this morning, your eyes closed. There's a place in this part of God's plan. It's called an altar. Used to be in churches, it was an article of furniture. And that was okay. But the altar is more than just an article of furniture in a church. Here's what an altar is. An altar is a place where you can meet with God individually, one-on-one. But today, unlike the Old Testament altar, you don't have to come with a lamb or a goat or a ram. All we have to come with is knowing that Jesus is my offering. His blood paid the price.